Hello YouTube, welcome back to Kind Heart Homestead. I am proceeding with my project to get the footer ready for our new shed. And you can see behind me I have a truckload of insulation. I had to drive 45 minutes to the nearest Lowe's to pick this stuff up. And even then, my truck's not really big enough to carry full sheet goods in a horizontal manner. So I have these bundled up, secured so that they're just basically one big cube that can't blow away, and then I have that all buckled in, strapped down into the truck bed. So I'm just gonna unload this real quick and get back to work, but I am planning to insulate underneath the slab, and that's why I have so much of this. I think I calculated I needed 12 sheets, but I went ahead and got a 13th just in case I make some mistakes with the cutting, or if I find somewhere else to put this in. Anyway, what I need to do is get my string lines restrung. And if you recall, before I dug, I did all of that once before, and it was kind of a hassle, and this is going to be a hassle again. So I'll just have to be patient with it. I need the string lines to be perfect, because the string lines are what set everything up for the angles of the concrete form boards. So if I get an outside string line perimeter, I'll be able to acknowledge where the 12 foot by 20 foot 2x6 forms are going to go. It's day 2 for this project where I'm trying to set up the form boards for the concrete and get this ready for slab. I'm actually way behind schedule. I mean, I don't really have a specific timeline. I haven't scheduled anything, but this is taking a lot more time than I thought. The people, the professionals on YouTube make this seem so easy. And I think it definitely helps that they have more than one person on the job to help measure layout with the diagonals and things like that. It also helps that they have these really long steel tape measures that they can have measuring 2 angles at once, and they put the tape together and kind of get their corners going. The problem for me is that I took down my batter boards to excavate, and I didn't leave a location to put the string lines back up. So trying to kind of reimagine the string lines over the excavated area was a complete pain. I basically had hovering strings that would indicate where a corner would be, and the only way for me to kind of project that to an actual place on the ground would be to get out of the trench and look straight down from above. And getting in and out of the trench is a pain, and I couldn't really get the hypotenuse to work. Those diagonals are supposed to be the same, but one of them would be like 5 inches more than the other. So I knew that I kind of had this oblong rhombus shape that I needed to turn into more of a square. But if I tried to adjust the diagonals, it would change the length and the width. So after doing that basically all day yesterday and not really getting anywhere, at the end of the day, I finally decided to put in the actual form boards, cut them to the exact length that they need to be, screw them together. So now this is a 12 by 20 foot form. Obviously the wood is a bit bigger, but the inside of the form will be 12 by 20, which is the building's dimensions. I need a 12 foot by 20 foot slab. And now that these are rigid enough, I mean, the length and the width cannot change when I adjust the diagonals. So last night before I went to bed, I think I got this to within 1 inch diagonal compared to the opposite diagonal, and that's good enough for me. And I think I had my elevations with my laser level within 1 inch of the height. The way I was able to set the elevations was I pounded my concrete form stakes through the sidewall of the trench, and I would put 2 of those per side for the short ends, those 2x6s that are about 12 feet long, sat on those. And then I put some vertical posts in just to kind of act as a stand for the long runs. I need to adjust those to get them to the exact height that they need to be, and I need to figure out a better way to secure them, because any stakes that I have down in the trench will be gone. The concrete is just going to swallow them up, and they're also going to be in the way for my plumbing and for the insulation I plan to put down there. So I basically have a lot of thinking to do, and I'll just have to figure this out. I have a battery-powered table saw that Milwaukee makes for job site cuts, and it does cut this foam board insulation pretty well, and that's what I typically use if I have several bays of joists or rafters to stuff. But because each of these cuts is potentially custom, I was determined to try to use smaller tools just to make this work easier. As you could see from the previous footage, my razor blade wasn't long enough to get all the way through this 2-inch foam, and even though I scored both sides, when I went to break it, it broke the wrong way. So basically I need to figure out how to extend the razor blade on my handheld tool, or get a better tool that has a longer blade, preferably something designed to cut 2-inch foam board. But until I can figure that out, I'm going to try to use my handheld circular saw. This is a pretty heavy-duty tool used for making job site framing cuts, and it's a very heavy tool, and it makes it kind of cumbersome to cut something this lightweight because you don't have any weight holding your material down. So as you can see here, I can get most of the way through before I have to resituate the foam, and I think that's good enough for this application. Well, I've been working all day on this. This was a lot of work. Sorry I didn't get a good time lapse of the foam board installation. I didn't really have a standard process. I ended up having to use a handheld razor blade, a little collapsible box cutter thing that I have, to score it, and then I would basically chop it or punch it or something to try to break it around that line. My main strategy was to measure the distance between my form board 2x6s and the ground over the course of probably 4 feet or 8 feet, depending on how I decided to cut the foam board. And I would take note of the largest gap, which in most cases was 24 inches. And then I would trace the contour line of the ground on the bottom of it, and then cut that to make it fit under the concrete form. And these are a bit loose, so I've been going around backfilling a bit. I'm not putting any of the sod in because I don't want any organic material to be added. But to try to tighten these up a bit and to prevent concrete from spilling out, I'm going to use this big gap filler, and I vigorously shook it for 60 seconds before turning on the camera. And I like to wear safety glasses and a glove, at least on the hand that's using this, because I've had some overflow here at the screw nozzle. So I'm gonna go ahead and fill some of these gaps now. Well, I just packed up camp. I spent a couple days working on this footer for the shed project that I'm getting ready to build. Super wet morning, everything got soaked. Took a bit longer than usual to pack up camp, but because there's rain forecasted for the rest of the weekend, I just have to leave this how it is. And thankfully I got to a good stopping point. I hadn't quite yet started on the PVC piping that goes underground, under the slab. Don't forget to press that like button if you enjoyed this video, and please consider subscribing to Kind Heart Homestead. That way you'll be notified about future videos in our series. Thanks a lot.